We're WOAH News, your news station for all your favorite topics.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Evelyn. And we're WOAH News.
We are here today with some fascinating stories for you.
We have Ty with the history of motocross and Emily with a melancholy story about adoption in China. Then we have Jaden with a creepy crawly story about ticks invading New Hampshire.
After, we have a sad story about the Great Depression and Evelyn on the tragedy of natural disasters and its effect on humankind. We also have a fact-filled stories about Two Cute Pups by Colin.
Finally, we have Reagan with a story about women's rights. So let's get started. Let's ride on over to Ty with the history of motocross.
In 1972, Edson Dye, known as the father of American motocross, brought motocross to America from Europe. What is motocross? Motocross is a sport with tough motorcycles on dirt tracks that have jumps, rollers, and berms. The entire sport became known as motocross from the French word motorcyclette and cross-country mix. In the early 80s, bikes got lighter, faster, and more durable, allowing bigger jumps to be made. In the early 2000s, jumps grew in size. The highest jump on record is 425 feet. Freestyle motocross, otherwise known as trick riding, has become very popular. Bikers perform extreme tricks like the Superman, Heart Attack, Cliffhanger, Lazy Boy, or Coffin, and backflips. They do these tricks at X Games and at big air competitions. They do whips and backflips. Travis Pastrana, Twitch, and Brian Deegan are some of the stars competing in motocross competitions. So if you would like to go and see one of these exciting competitions, you can take a trip to Denver, Colorado, Sacramento, California, or Hawkstone, England. Back over to you, Reagan.
I guess I never realized that motocross was made by just putting a motor on a bike.
I know, and that it originated in Europe. Next, we have Emily on adoption in China.
Thanks, Evelyn. My question was, why aren't little girls in China valued? So I did some research to find out. According to BBC News and TFK, in the 1970s, the Chinese government took a discreet approach because of their ever-growing population. China's one-child policy was put into place in 1979. Chinese families had long been under this impression that male babies were considered to be more valuable or golden because boys could do more work and bring more financial stability to a family. Therefore, girls were seen of less value, which led to 4 decades of Americans adopting 60,000 children from China. Some data claiming as many as with 90% being female. This policy continued until 2016 when the Chinese government decided to do a change of their policy and allow couples across the country to have the right to have 2 children. I'm happy to American where I can decide how many children I like to have. Back to you, Reagan.
Thanks, Emily. That really makes me think about gender discrimination in China.
It really touched me too. Let's crawl on over to Jaden with the story about tick levels rising in New Hampshire.
Thanks, Evelyn. Did you know that New Hampshire has one of the highest Lyme disease rates in the country? Lyme disease is a tick-borne disease that inflammates your body parts of fluid. According to Dr. Alan Eaton of University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension, who has been studying ticks for 30 years, the tick population is growing and spreading. There are many reasons why the tick population is booming in New Hampshire and all over the world. Suburban habitats have extended into tick territory, and there's global warming. Warming temperatures and milder winters have increased not only the population of the white-footed mouse, but also its range. Sheila Haddad, Vice President of Sales for Bell Laboratories, which manufactures rodent control technology, agrees. Mice used to seasonally enter home primarily in the fall and winter months in New England, but now it's a year-round problem. Warmer winters mean more mice survive. It never gets cold enough to kill them. Here are some tick tactics to prevent tick encounters according to the CDC. Walk in their center of trails and avoid walking through tall bushes. Cover exposed skin and wear light-colored clothing so the tick is visible. Repel ticks on skin and clothing using repellent that contains 20% or more of DEET, oil of the lemon eucalyptus. Check yourself and pets daily. Put clothes in dry or on high. Thanks for listening to my tick tactics. Stay safe. This is Jaden. Back to you, Evelyn.
Thanks, Jaden. Who knew that ticks were closely related to spiders and scorpions?
I certainly didn't. Now we have Phineas with a story on the Great Depression.
The Great Depression was a horrible worldwide bank crash that first took place in 1929. Originally in the United States, the Great Depression lasted from 1929 to 1939 and was the worst economic crash in the history of the modern world. It began after the stock market crash of October 1929. Over the next several years, consumer spending and investment dropped, causing lots of money loss and unemployment as failing companies fired workers. By 1933, when the Great Depression reached its worst point, about 15 million Americans were unemployed and almost half the country's banks had failed. When the Great Depression struck, Herbert Hoover was the president. Later, Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president. As president, the Great Depression stopped the U.S. from managing to help in World War II. On March 6, 1933, FDR announced a bank holiday 2 days after he was inaugurated. The bank holiday helped Congress act and help regain peace in the banks. In 1929, 6 years after the holiday, the crisis ended. Back to you, Evelyn.
Thanks, Finn. It's unfathomable to think that 15 million people were affected by the Great Depression.
It sure is. Now let's spin over to Evelyn with the interesting story about how natural disasters affect children.
Thanks, Reagan. Hello. My name is Evelyn. Natural disasters, one of your worst nightmares, and how much damage it can do to your community. Dr. Carolyn Kowski, Director of Policy Research and Engagement at the Warrington Risk Management and Decision Processes Center at the University of Pennsylvania, considers 3 ways that natural disasters may harm children disproportionately with long-lasting effects. Number 1, physical health, which could manifest itself in many ways. Children could be injured and killed, become malnourished, or suffer from the effects of contaminated water. Number 2, mental health problems, obviously stressful and frightening because of the devastating effect on homes, possessions, and grief, and parental stress. Number 3, education for the children is interrupted, families are displaced, and schools are destroyed, again adding to the already catastrophic situation. How do we ease this already tragic situation? We need to be better prepared with stronger buildings. Children should be reunited with their families quicker and better social programming post-disaster. Anything that can be done to help these children being affected by natural disasters is worthwhile. Thank you, and back to you, Reagan.
Thank you, Evelyn. It is hard to realize that natural disasters can affect children's education, physical health, and mental health.
I know, it must be so frightening for these children. Let's bark over to Colin with a story about the similarities and differences on 2 adorable pups.
Thanks, Evelyn. Have you ever considered the similarities and differences between golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers? The differences and similarities between Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers can be explained by Darwin's 1925 theory of evolution, in particular his descent with modifications component. Beneficial mutations can explain the similarities and differences of both breeds. Both breeds, thought to be ancestors of St. John's water dog, love water. Unfortunately, they both have a high risk of cancer, dysplasias, and other diseases. Some differences between the breeds are golden retrievers can live from 10 to 13 years, while labs may live from 10 to 12 years. Secondly, goldens weigh from 55 to 75 pounds, while labs may weigh in at 65 to 80 pounds. Lastly, goldens come in many shades from yellow to auburn, while labs may come in yellow, black, or brown. Considering Darwin's theory, these breeds are a variation of the original breed, but may with time become entirely different creatures. So the next time you see a golden retriever or a Labrador retriever, make sure to recognize their similarities and differences. Back to you, Reagan.
Thanks, Colin. It surprises me that 2 breeds who look so much alike can be so different.
Next, we have Reagan with an important story about Title IX.
June 23, 1972, women all over the United States felt supported when the Senate and the House of Representatives made Title IX happen. Title IX prohibits any gender discrimination of any kind in educational programming. It is hard to believe that in 1972, a mere 45 years ago, when girls were allowed the same opportunity as boys in athletics. Harder still to believe that in 1984, the Supreme Court limited Title IX to only schools receiving federal funds. In 1988, the Civil Rights Act was reenacted over President Ronald Reagan's veto. It was in 1996 before it was restored. In 2005, the Department of Education put a policy out that schools can submit email surveys to examine for females' abilities and interests in specific sports. If they sense no ability, they won't need to add more sports, and schools are presumed to be in compliance with Title IX. In 2010, the Department of Education cancels their previous policy. Email surveys are no longer acceptable to examine for female athletes' interests or Title IX. To all the girls out there, thank Title IX for the opportunities that are allowed today. Back to you, Evelyn.
Thank you, Reagan. That was such a powerful story, and I didn't know that Title IX was such a big problem back then. That's it for today. WOAH News is out.
This is WLBC reporting live, informing you about what's new.
Hi, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sierra.
And we're
WLBC.
Today we have some fascinating stories.
Including Drew spinning into what would happen if the world stopped rotating, Colby teaching us about the Battle of Lexington and Concord,
Amelia with the Chincoteague pony,
Nick reporting on how video games could improve your brain functionalities,
and Sierra investigating and understanding your dog and how to translate their emotions.
And Lindsay diving deeper into how the pygmy three-toed sloth became endangered.
First up, we will spin into Drew, informing us about what would happen if the world stopped spinning.
Thanks, Lindsay. Have you ever wondered what happened if the world stopped spinning suddenly or gradually? The chance for such event is basically zero in the next few billion years. But according to the archives of astronomy, if the Earth stopped spinning suddenly, the atmosphere would still be in motion. All the land masses not connected to bedrock would be right off the Earth. There would be huge tsunamis, and the sun would set in the west and set in the east. According to second thought, if the spinning stopped gradually, the land masses would erode over time, and unlike a sudden event, a gradual occurrence would cause the ocean's tides to rise, but not to tsunami-like heights. Regardless of whether if it stopped suddenly or gradually, the Earth would still have two ginormous oceans and continents, and for 6 months we'd have day, and the remaining 6 months would be night. On the bright side, we won't be witnessing this. Back to you, Lindsay.
Imagine how scary it would be if all of a sudden you were ripped from Earth by wind.
Or if a tsunami was coming towards your house if you lived nowhere near the ocean. Let's fight our way to the story of the Battle of Lexington and Concord being told by Colby.
Thanks, Sierra. The Battle of Lexington and Concord was the first and the most important battle of the Revolutionary War. This battle was fought between Great Britain and the 13 original colonies. The Revolutionary War, which took place from 1775 to 1783, was started by the French and Indian War because the British, also known as the Redcoats, taxed all the Americans on stamps, sugar, molasses, lead, paper, glass, and of course, tea. The Americans attacked because they felt it was unfair. The battle was fought between the British soldiers and the colonists. The British wanted to take away the colonists' weapons and arrest John Hancock and Samuel Adams. On April 18, 1775, Joseph Warren learned from a source inside the British High Command that Redcoat troops would march that night on Concord. He sent Paul Revere and William Dawes to alert the residents of the news. They traveled towards Lexington by different routes, and we all know what happens next according to Emerson's poem about the midnight ride of Paul Revere. General Gage, along with his 700 redcoats, marched up to find Samuel Adams, but then ran into 70 colonists. Because the Minutemen were better in battle than the British Empire, it wasn't surprising that only 8 Minutemen were killed, with 10 injured, while the British suffered greater casualties. We still don't know who fired the shot, but we do know that it gave America freedom. Back to you, Sierra.
Interesting that we can trace our freedom back to that very battle.
I also learned that this was the first battle of the Revolutionary War.
Now we're riding in with Amelia talking about the Chincoteague pony.
Thanks, Sierra. Did you know that the Chincoteague pony was discovered in 1750, but didn't become an official breed until 1994? The Chincoteague ponies make their home on the Aztec Island on the Maryland-Virginia line. Their average height is 12 to 13 hands. The ponies are stocky with short legs, thick manes, large round bellies, and come in all different colors. They appear bloated because of their diet of saltwater cordgrass. The Chincoteague ponies have adapted to their environment and remained wild and protected by the Maryland National Park Service. The ponies have a lot of fanfare, including the pony swim, which is when the ponies swim from Aztec Island
to Chincoteague Island. This has happened for the last 93 years. The saltwater cowboys round up the ponies every July. After the swim, the foals are auctioned off to keep the herd from growing too large. The money from selling the foals are used for veterinary care of the ponies. If you want to come and see this amazing spectacle, go to Chincoteague Island on Wednesday, July 21st. I wish I could go. Back to you, Sierra.
Who knew that there was a story behind how these fascinating ponies appeared bloated?
Or how much less they drink than other horses and how much they eat.
Let's see what Nick can teach us about how video games can improve your brain skill.
Thanks, Sierra. Did you ever think that a video game can improve many functions of the brain? Well, research has shown that a video game can increase many functions in the brain. It can increase problem solving, attention, reasoning, social skills. These contests can improve motor skills by having the player avoid objects by jumping from place to place, and increase a participant's reaction times. Surprisingly, brain teaser games give a brain a workout and boost the brain's functions and IQ. The logic and reasoning a gamer uses role-playing games are being taken back to the real world to help develop social skills. According to the proceedings of the National Academy of Science, a study discovered that people who play action games learn better than people who play non-action games. Daphne Carballiera, a professor in brain and cognitive science at the University of Rochester, said action games keep our brains predicting what will come next. So if you think you're just being lazy playing video games, you're actually improving your brain. Back to you, Sierra.
Who would ever think that video games could help improve your reaction skills?
And help your brain functionality along with social skills.
Now let's bark up the tree to see what Sierra will teach us about doggy emotions and how to understand them.
Thanks, Lindsay. You crack me up. Hi, I'm Sierra with some ways to understand your dog's mood through their body language. Is your dog anxious and afraid, or maybe even just bored? To recognize your dog's anxiety and fear, your dog's lips will be pressed together and pulled back with a wide tongue, and their tail tucked in, back rounded, legs braced, eyes narrowed, ears slanted up, stomach sucked in, whining or pacing, and destructive behavior. Causes of anxiety can be abuse, new homes, and music, and animals that are unfamiliar. The way to ease anxiety would be put on calm music. How to recognize boredom would be whining, barking, being antsy, and pacing. The way to ease boredom would be get a dog walker for when you're not home, bring them to doggy daycare, take them for long walks, play outside with them. Just make sure you give them at least 1 hour or more of exercise. I'm Sierra and you're watching WLBC. Back to you, Lindsay.
The next time my dog is anxious, I'll definitely know.
Awesome. You never want a dog that feels misunderstood. Now, we'll dive into Lindsay telling us about the endangerment journey of the pygmy three-toed sloths.
Thanks, Sierra. In 2012, due to the lack of mangrove trees on the island of Isla Escador de Vaguas, Panama, only about 79 pygmy three-toed sloths were left in the world. In 2013, the Dallas World Aquarium almost set off an international incident by trying to export 6 pygmies from Panama to the U.S. They were given permission by the Panamanian government, except they never asked the U.S. government. These sloths were returned to their tiny island, but sadly, one of them were reported dead in October due to the stressful process. In 2014, the Animal Welfare Institute issued an emergency petition to add the Bradypus pygmaeus to the endangered species list. The goals were to protect these sloths because they are the rarest and tiniest breed of flora. A few months later, in April, the Friend of a Pygmy Sloth Facebook page posted, and I quote, "A bunch of very healthy babies were born," referring to these sloths. Finally, by the end of 2014, the pygmy three-toed sloth got a letter confirming that they had been assessed and placed onto the endangered species list as critically endangered. Despite all of the major events this breed of sloth has gone through, they are finally being protected in their natural environment, and their mangrove trees are now standing tall with their little tree dwellers hanging out. Back to you, Sierra.
Those poor sloths, just needing their mangrove trees.
Having to go through all that struggle. We're
WLBC, signing off. See you next time.
This is WNCA News, where we tell you what you want to hear.
Hi, I'm Erin.
And I'm Ava.
And we're from WNCA News.
And today you'll be listening to
Oshik with the Hyperloop,
Andrew with Hurricane Irma,
Caleb with soaps causing allergic reactions,
Reagan talking about World War II,
Ava with ocean pollution,
Aaron with climate change,
and lastly we have Casey with the evolution of baseball. First up, we have Oshik with an interesting story about futuristic transportation.
Thanks, Aaron. Whoosh! That's the sound of the Hyperloop. The Hyperloop won global competition is in direct response of Elon Musk's 2013 big idea, which is to revolutionize transportation by 2020. The competitors and rivals, which may include governments, businesses, and universities, will create a futuristic cargo transporter that will have the ability to reach speeds of 700 miles per hour traveling through a magnetic tube. Elon Musk and British billionaire Richard Branson are trying to make this invention come to life. The two inventors are trying to cut travel time from Los Angeles to San Francisco, which is 5 hours and 45 minutes, to 30 to 45 minutes by Hyperloop. The Hyperloop is almost like the bullet train. The high-tech train is special because it is getting powered by an electric generator as well as magnetism. Since the Hyperloop is already high-tech, why not make the train automatic with no drivers, just computers? This is the Hyperloop. Now, what do you think? Is this invention worth it? Would you really drive a transporter that is traveling at speeds of 700 miles per hour? Happy travels, my friend, and have a great day. Back to you, Aaron.
That makes for an interesting competition between universities and businesses.
Or that the Hyperloop is powered by magnets and electricity. Now, let's spin on over to Andrew, reporting about the damages and effects of Hurricane Irma.
Thanks, Ava. 1 minute, it's a regular day. The next minute, an extremely powerful and catastrophic hurricane lands in Florida. Let's go back to September 10th, 2017. As panicked Floridians are evacuating, they can't help wondering, could this be from global warming or a sign of climate change? When meteorologists heard that Hurricane Irma was coming for them, they had 6.3 million people to evacuate Florida. Even though most of them did evacuate. Even so, some people didn't evacuate. What causes a hurricane to form? Hurricanes, which are several thunderstorms working together from the tropics, a region of the Earth surrounding the equator. A hurricane can be 600 miles wide with spiraling winds that may increase from 75 to 200. But in this case, Hurricane Irma's speed was 130 miles per hour. Hurricane Irma caused $150 billion to go to repairs and $23,810 per person. That's why you don't want to be in a hurricane. Back to you, Ava.
Amazing that one hurricane could cause so much damage and affect so many lives.
True, even when 6.3 million people were asked to evacuate prior to Irma. Next on to Caleb with a story on an ingredient that can cause bad rashes.
Thanks, Aaron. Have you ever used Elmo bubble soap on your kids? If you have, here are some reasons why you should stop. Recently, there have been complaints about rashes on kids' faces and body from this soap. In December 2017, a family from Bristol, Connecticut recently gave their kids a Elmo bubble bath. The next day, there were rashes on their face and leg. Sodium chloride and sodium benzoate is often found in children's bath products and causes rashes. These chemicals are also associated with nausea, vomiting, uneven heart rates, and seizures. 61% of all children's bath products tested contain these two chemicals. The Food and Drug Administration does not test for all harmful ingredients in the bath products before they are sold. Sodium lauryl sulfate is another toxic ingredient that produces the foam in soap and can cause skin and eye irritation. The FDA does not require all harmful toxins to be on bath products labels. That means that parents have no way of knowing what toxins are in their child's bath. These toxins can affect other things in life as well. If your child is experiencing rashes, taking an oatmeal bath will soothe it. Some manufacturers have already started removing these ingredients from their products because it hasn't been proven that those ingredients are safe for daily use over a long period of time. So watch those labels and start investigating more closely. Back to you, Erin.
I'll be on the lookout for sodium chloride.
Who would have thought that there would be dangerous ingredients in children's soap? Now let's shoot on over to Reagan, talking about World War II.
Ava, have you thought about the disasters in World War II? From 1939 to 1945, one of the worst human conflicts ever, World War II was fought. Over 60 million people died in World War II. 38 to 55 million were civilians, 13 to 20 million died from war-related diseases and famine. Feeling powerless, Germans manipulated by Hitler believed Jews were responsible for their predicament. He blamed all of Germany's problems on the Jews. Hitler wanted a master race, blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin. Starting World War II with an unprovoked attack on Poland from Germany, Adolf Hitler started relocating Jews to concentration camps. This later got worse, with many Jews being executed. The war, lasting from 1939 to 1945, included the most powerful of countries, forming into two opposing forces. The Axis countries consisted of Germany, Italy, and Japan. The Allied countries consisted of France, Britain, Soviet Union, China, and eventually the U.S. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. There were 353 Japanese fighter crafts and dive bombers in total that attacked the base. 2,403 Americans were killed and 1,178 others wounded. This unprovoked attack led to the United States entering World War II. 1945, knowing his defeat was approaching, Adolf Hitler committed suicide, along with his wife, Eva Braun. World War II, a difficult time for all those who witnessed it. Back to you, Ava.
Devastating to imagine that 60 million people died in World War II.
Or that 2,403 people died in the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Let's dive on over to Ava, who's reporting about ocean pollution.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, my name is Ava, and did you know that 1.4 billion pounds of trash gets dumped into the ocean every year? Most of this pollution comes from land activities along the coastlines. Another type of pollution is non-point source pollution that comes from runoff from septic tanks, cars, trucks, boats, farms, timber harvest areas, or even oil and chemical spills. This pollution mostly ends up on beaches, sinks to the bottom of the ocean, or gets eaten by marine life. There are other ways to pollute the ocean, even without throwing trash into it, like nitrogen phosphorus, which is an important nutrient for growing plants. But if an overabundant amount is in a body of water, it can overgrow algae, which is also called algal blooms. These algal blooms can have a negative effect on living organisms. One of the last most common types of pollution is marine debris. This can affect the ocean by injuring or killing marine life. Marine debris can also interfere with navigation safety and poses a threat to human health. In conclusion, ocean pollution is the worst option for you, me, and marine life. Back to you, Erin.
I didn't realize that in 1 year, 1.4 billion pounds of trash gets dumped into the ocean.
I know, that seems crazy. Now, let's slide on over to Erin, who's talking about climate change.
Thanks, Ava. According to National Geographic, Earth's temperature in 2015 was the hottest ever recorded. You may ask, why does this matter? Since the 1900s, Earth's temperature has increased 1.5 degrees. This climate change caused by methane, carbon dioxide, and a loss of forest is a significant threat to humans, plants, and animals, which face harsh new challenges for survival. Droughts, storms, heat waves, and illnesses caused by smog, such as asthma, heart disease, and lung cancer, are a significant threat. This 1.5 degree increase may seem like a small change, but it also affects the ocean's temperature, which in turn affects sea life. With the sea levels rising and water becoming much warmer, sea animals are subject to very dangerous conditions. Scientists believe humans have impacted our climate in many ways, with the cars that we use and the gases they release. Now they have electric cars that are more healthy, that do not need gas and are more healthy for the environment. Another improvement is solar panels instead of fossil fuels. With everyone's help, we can reverse the effects climate change has and make it a better place. Back to you, Ava.
Interesting that since the 1900s to the 2000s, there's been a 1.5% of rising temperatures.
I'm just curious if this will continue or people will do something about it. Next on to Caleb. Lastly, let's swing on over to Casey, talking about the evolution of baseball.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, I'm Casey. Do you know there's a major difference between the American League and the National League?
During the summer of 1839, the game of baseball was discovered by Abner Doubleday in Cooperstown, New York, where the Baseball Hall of Fame is located. Currently, baseball is separated into an American League and a National League. The National League plays by original rules, but the American League changed those rules in the late 1970s with the theory that more offense would get more attendance and attention. One different rule between the two is that the American League ballparks can have a designated hitter, but the National League ballparks cannot. Although discussed since the mid-1900s, the designated hitter was put into play to slow down the domination of the National League pitchers. The National League plays by the rules, though, and has their worst hitter bat, which is usually the pitcher. They should just let the pitchers bat and have the designated hitter actually play the field. They make millions of dollars to bat 3 or 4 times a game. People should protest about why the designated hitter is even in the American League. That is the difference between the American League and the National League. Back to you, Erin.
I didn't know that there was a different set of rules for each league.
Yeah, me too. I would have thought that they'd have the same rules.
That's all, and thanks for watching. But WNCA News is signing off.